So for those of you who are new here, this might be the cheapest aquarium that you see today. This tank literally just has a plastic tub as the tank itself, and that's it. No wires, no plugs, no electricity on this here 5-gallon pond aquarium. Hey everyone, this is DWS Darius, and right now you're looking at what could be the ultimate challenge for any fish keeper. Create a setup that doesn't rely on electricity. That's one of the biggest downsides about my fish room. If one storm comes and knocks out my electricity, all hope is lost. This right here is a aquarium that relies only on balance. But with this tank, as you can see, we have no lights. We're just relying on the light that comes from the sun. We have no filter. We rely on the plants to filter the water. We have no fertilizers. We rely on the fish living inside the water to fertilize the water. This thing is completely balanced. Everything depends on each other, and that's why this is definitely one of my favorite setups. Now, since the last time I showed you guys this setup, there's not really major changes. However, there is still progress. And today I'm just going to give you guys a walkthrough and show you what's going on in this here ecosystem. So I guess I'll start off giving you guys a look at some of these plants, because the plants are like the key element to this here ecosystem, and everything is doing pretty well. I did take a lot of plants out of here because, you know, I just set up my 880 and I have the plants growing on top, so I took a few out of here, but I replaced it with a few other ones. So let's start over here. We have the bacopa still growing like crazy. It's growing behind the blinds, and look at that, this thing is growing crazy, and all of this is connected. And right here is the root system. The water is low. I've got to do a water change today. Every week we lose about an inch of water due to evaporation. But look at the roots. The bacopa is absolutely loving this setup. It's been having flowers continuously while up here, so that's definitely doing awesome. Besides that, this umbrella palm doing awesome. Not really liking the way it hangs, but I'm guessing it's because the root system still needs to develop in order for it to be nice and straight. But I guess the hanging isn't that bad when you look at the entire setup. It's not that bad. We had some horsetail that was doing good, and now it is not doing so well. I'm not sure. This didn't do too good in the pond either, so maybe it's just, I don't know what, but it's not doing good. I left the pothos in here. I told you I was going to take it out because of the cat, but the cat doesn't come in here anymore, which is good. So this is still in here, and you see that's growing nicely. I'm glad it's not taking over. I like how it's just a little bunch and not like going crazy like it does in my aquariums. This moss doing okay. We have moss climbing up this log. We have the lucky bamboo. I took this out, put it downstairs in the 880, then I ended up bringing it back up here. So you see the dead leaves because it was moved around a lot. So it wasn't really liking that. We have this Amazon sword, which I'm loving because now it's growing immersed leaves, and it's going to get huge and going to look awesome. Going to have some really nice texture to it. I'm very tempted to take these things downstairs to the 880, but I'm thinking I'm going to leave them up here until I get a few more. I have this one, and then I have another one down there, and just if we get a couple up here immersed, I'll take maybe one downstairs. Now the coolest thing with the plants is that my aquatic plants are starting to adapt to this setup. So once a week during the summer season, there's a lot of evaporation. It's really hot in this room, and we get 1 inch of evaporation. The water is filled to the brim when I do my weekly water changes, but here we are a week later, and look how low it gets. Now, because it goes so low, these plants are exposed. When I fill up the tank, they're underwater, like this Anubias right here, but here we are a week later, and the water went down. Normally, if you take Anubias out of an aquarium, the leaves will shrivel up. That's what happened when I first took it out. Eventually, it got adjusted to the change in environment, sometimes being underwater, sometimes being above the water. And look at that, it's been like this for a couple of days because the water was going down slowly, and it's not shriveled up, it's growing. So this thing is immersed, and it's adjusted to living in this environment that is flooded every now and then, and every now and then exposed. Same thing can be said about this dwarf sat. You can see we have some pieces back there that are exposed. And they're just adapting. Look how long this is, dwarf's edge, and look how long it is. It's like 10 inches long, but just adapting to this setup. Same thing can be said about my Java fern. Look at all these leaves I have growing out of the water. Normally, you take a piece of Java fern out of an aquarium and it's going to shrivel up. This thing is being adapted to this setup and is able to grow out of the water. And I just added some water sprite in here as well. It's kind of buried, but water sprite starting to adapt as well. Here's a nice little leaf of the water sprite. And yeah, the plants are the key to success for this here setup. The immersed plants are very strong when it comes to removing the waste produced by the fish, and the aquatic plants are great because they provide oxygen for the fish. So the CO2 that the fish produce is converted into oxygen for him to breathe. So underwater plants like this Crypt right here, this is Crypt Wendiety. Look at it, he's biting my hand. Crypt Wendiety. We have some Java fern that's still underneath the water. Amazon sword. Last time you saw this was a baby Amazon sword. I had the one Amazon sword that sent out a runner. I planted two of the runners. This is one, and this is another. You see, they both are just about full size now, so that's pretty good. Right here, another Crypt, and then Java fern and dwarf sage and all of that. Also added a temple plant. This was just added like a week ago. You see, it's not looking too great, but we have new roots, so pretty soon that's going to turn around. And we have this parrot feather right there in the corner. So the more plants, the better. The only thing you want to be careful of is just making sure you don't take up too much space for the fish in here. This fish, this is a paradise gourami, right now about 2 inches, and so far he could swim in this little perimeter, but he can't swim over there because the roots got too thick. And obviously right now when the water is down, he can't swim over here because it's too low. But that's one thing you want to remember. You don't want so many plants that your fish lose space unless you just go ahead and switch out for a smaller fish. Then you can get more plants, and that will definitely be better. Next ingredient to this here ecosystem are fish and livestock. Now this is very important. You can't overdo it. It has to be balanced. The fish are producing the CO2 for underwater plants, and they're producing waste, which is fertilizers for these terrestrial plants. But you can't overdo it because there is no filter, which produces oxygen in the water and also removes excess waste. So you definitely got to balance it out. And right now I only have one fish, and that is this paradise gourami, which is actually perfect. Look at him, he's just non-stop attacking my finger. Perfect for this setup because he breathes air directly from the surface. So if the CO2 levels are high in the water, I'm still safe because he takes oxygen directly from the surface. Now I have checked, and even though this guy is able to take oxygen from the air itself, there is still a decent amount of oxygen in the water being produced by the plants. And I noticed because the other day I had some mosquito fish in here and they were swimming around and they showed no signs of gasping, heavy breathing, and that's a good way to see if the oxygen levels in this setup are decent. And the mosquito fish are not in here anymore because he chased them and they jumped out and died. So yeah, this guy is the only fish in an aquarium, and you can tell because he's so spoiled. Look how fat he is. That's because today I fed him bloodworms, and he ate a whole cube of bloodworms. I had the bloodworms in there, he just took it and ran in the corner, so I couldn't get it back. But yeah, he's in here. He's the only fish in here, and he is becoming a little bit aggressive towards other fish. I tried adding like guppies and stuff, and he's been attacking them. So he's the only fish, and that's good because once again it has to be balanced, and one fish in this aquarium is perfect. I purposely chose this paradise gourami because in here it gets really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter with all these windows. When I say really cold, I'm talking about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. It really doesn't drop below that, but that is pretty cold for tropical fish. And in the summer it gets as hot as the day. So if we get 90-degree days, it's 90 degrees in here. So that's definitely a very tough environment. You need a very hardy fish, and this guy perfectly fits the category. They can live in waters as cool as 60 degrees Fahrenheit. They can live in warm temperatures as well. So this is definitely the perfect choice, and I love his interaction. Look at him, he's stuffed, he ate already, and look how much he's following me like a little dog. So he's going to be the only fish in this here setup. I was thinking about putting a female in here with them. I tried, and he attacked it, so he's probably going to stay in this setup by himself until I feel as if he's too big, because they can reach 4 inches, and as greedy as this fish is, he may very well reach 4 inches, and by then he will be too big. Besides that, there's just like 100 Malaysian trumpet snails that definitely may have been a bad decision. I added 10 of them when I first set this thing up, and you can see some of the babies on the back wall back there, but there are a lot more. When the lights go out, they come up. I'm not sure if it's because he attacks them, and that's probably why they're not out right now during the daytime. But at night, cut these lights off. This entire wall is full of Malaysian trumpet snails. Besides that, to keep this ecosystem nice and healthy, it requires a nice balance of lights. I explained this in my previous video that this room gets a lot of light. The full day is full of indirect bright light because of all these windows, and then we get about 3 hours of direct sunlight. Of course, as winter comes, that direct sunlight is going to go down, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. And we also get a nice balance of water changes. Once a week I do water changes. Decided to do a water change mid-video, so while I was recording I put the camera down, did a water change. That's why you see the water level is at the brim and the water is dirty, and that's because while I was doing a water change, stirred up the substrate a little bit and got the dirt kicked up, but that's going to settle down pretty soon. And that is all that's required to keep this thing nice and healthy. The water changes is more so beneficial for the fish, cools them down a little bit because this thing, as I said, gets pretty hot in these summer days. So nice cool down, fresh oxygen, and just a nice fresh start. Overall, not a bad system, not a bad setup, not a bad aquarium, not a bad pond, whatever you want to call it. I call it a pond tank because it was meant to be a tank. We do get a view down here, but you can see, one, it's kind of covered in algae, and two, it's not that transparent. But I only paid $7 for this tub, so definitely not bad, and probably definitely going to be the cheapest aquarium that you see today. Now, if you want to see how I made this, you can check out the first video of this here setup. Like I said, super simple, super cheap. The only thing I actually bought was this here container. I had the dirt, I had the substrate. Most of these plants I had in my aquariums or in my pond, and just put it all together. Now, I did buy some plants. I bought this Amazon sword. I bought this temple plant last week, and I bought the dwarf sage. But I paid about $20, and I could easily make that money back because I started with one Amazon sword. It had babies. I have 2 more adults. Probably next year they're going to have even more, and I can sell those back and get that money back. This dwarf sage, I had 1, and look at it. All runners, all around. Could sell all those, get the money back. Same thing with all these plants. So a little investment, and I could get a little bit of profit back as well to make this a completely free setup. And a person who actually asked me to see this aquarium wanted to focus on the fish, and I kind of just talked about everything else. But this guy is in here, he's doing awesome. I think he's exploring because I just filled up the tank, and he's able to go in places that he normally can't explore because of the lower level. Oh, he's right here, just staring at me. See, it's a cloudy day, so we don't really have the bright light that we had in my last video, but he's in there. Of course, look for food even though he's stuffed. But yeah, this is the setup. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And we'll see you on the next one.